Alright guys, greetings and salutations. I hope everyone is still doing well. Welcome to today's bonus. We are that much closer to tonight's live stream, Saturday Nightmares, live from New York at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you all there. We discuss experiences, encounters, info, theory. We even talk about movies, music, and etc. It is truly the pinnacle of my week. Guys, right now I'm here to share with you some very terrifying experiences, creatures that live in the woods and cave systems. Before we get into that though, a couple links. As you all know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we? Guys, the video that is in this upload is a subscriber-submitted video where he captures some very strange evidence of something lurking in the woods of a state park. Let's get into this upload. Today's first part of the upload. I live in West Virginia and have all of my life. I really don't come from a rich family, and I am not rich myself. I live in a single-wide trailer with my 2-year-old son outside of the town of Gary. My boyfriend is a truck driver and is only home every so often. I'm kind of used to being alone with my son here at night. My closest neighbor is 3 miles, and my trailer is back in the woods. This is a mountain town. I grew up hearing scary stories of monsters, but never saw anything growing up. I never saw anything until now, and I'd like to tell you about it. I'm pretty sure that whatever I saw is definitely stalking us, and is not a Sasquatch. Well, I've never seen a Sasquatch, but I think I would know if I ever saw one. So this started last summer. I clean houses for a living. I was leaving the last house of the day. I had just gone and picked up my son from the babysitters, and we were heading back home. It's 8 p.m. when I turn onto my driveway. My driveway is very long and sandy, surrounded by trees and woods on both sides. I haven't even gotten to my house when I saw a man jump from one tree on the right side of the driveway to another tree on the left side. I mean, like 30 feet in the air. He just jumped like how a monkey swings from trees. He did this in front of the car as I was still driving slowly to my trailer. It's bumpy and sandy on the driveway, so I never go faster than 10 miles an hour. At that moment, I wasn't sure what I saw, but I did know it was a man. I saw its skin, and it had some torn cloth on him as well. Arms, legs, all the man would have. I did not see his face. I hit my brakes. My son is still in the back seat, almost asleep. I didn't question what I saw or try to make sense of it, cause I knew it was some sort of creature. Yeah, and I was scared. My first thought was my son. I only stopped there in my driveway for a second, and then went ahead and sped up to get down this bumpy driveway back to my house with my son. As I passed those trees on my left, I'm just looking around to see if it's still up there. I didn't see anything. I kept going. It was about dark, but I could still see. I see my trailer from around the corner, and I see movement. Okay, so let me add here that it ain't that uncommon for deer or other animals to be around the trailer. It's normal. But there were people up ahead, and one of them was in my trash bag. I don't have a trash service way out here, so I sometimes will set a bag on my porch and haul it to the dump. So a man was in my trash. I get closer and these people hear my car and my headlights are lighting up the front part of the house. And I see like 4 of these things run off into the woods. I saw one very well, but it was his face that really scared me. That thing had dirt or mud all over its face, and there was something wrong with his face, because it did not look right. His eyes were way up on his forehead, and he had a humped back. It had some dark pants on, no shirt, and the chest and back had a lot of brown hair. His nipples were huge and dark. I could see through his hair. He was barefoot. This one was dragging my trash bag. He ran off, too, but didn't seem in too much of a rush as the others to get back to the woods. I lost sight of all of them, but I waited before I went to the house. I didn't have a gun or anything on me, so I was careful. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, letting it idle before I drove up to the house. I grabbed my son and ran inside because I don't have cell signal in my driveway. I called my uncle once I got in. My uncle said I was seeing shit, but he came on down an hour later and looked around. Lord, I was so scared. Well, me and my son were just waiting for my uncle. My uncle got here. He's a big guy and had weapons on him. He investigated. He came back to the front door white as a ghost. He came in and said he had seen a devil in the woods and that we were getting in his truck with my son and we were getting the hell out of here. We never called the police or anything. What are we going to tell the police? This was last summer. The winter came and nothing. Then, just this past March, when my boyfriend was home, we heard scratching at 11 at night on the side of the trailer. A metal sound. He went outside to look, but there wasn't anything there. But he smelled a smell that he described as rotten pig feet. If you eat pig feet, you'll know what I mean. We smell bad things a lot, and we see a lot of moving things in the trees. But now my boyfriend will be moving us to the other side of the state because of his job, and we only have a few more weeks. But there are wild clans in West Virginia as well, not just North Carolina or Tennessee. Also, my uncle has never did talk about what he saw that night. Today's second part of the upload. Some strange experiences. My family and I have property in Kisatchie National Forest, central Louisiana. I want to start out by giving a little background info about my family members, and then my wife and I. My family members are all either in the medical field or the IT field, my grandparents included. They are credible people, and they are usually pretty skeptical to a certain point. My wife is working on her bachelor's degree in radiology, and I'm working on my master's degree in data analytics. My wife and I both attend online programs for school due to COVID and the fact that we have a 1.5-year-old. So, our property consists of 55 acres of dense forest and a small house. My family has owned the property for little under a decade and no one lives out there. My family bought it for the occasional getaway and for emergencies. My grandparents and both my uncles would always tell us stories about hearing strange sounds at night, something beating on the tree trunks with sticks, and they would apparently hear something knock up against the house from time to time. They would always hear whistles at night, and they would find broken tree limbs set up in weird ways, almost like a kind of fence or barricade toward the back of the property. My grandpa, trying not to sound crazy, said he thought it was essentially the North American primate that hadn't been officially acknowledged by the scientific community. And my wife and I never had been believers in Bigfoot ever. I'm a believer in extraterrestrial, I guess, because the universe is so big, but I would have never considered Sasquatch's existence as a possibility, or any other large undiscovered mammal in North America for that matter. So in April of this year, my wife and I decided to stay out there for a couple of months and get away from the distractions, being in our early 20s, living in the city. So literally, on our first night there, we're moving all our stuff into the house, we started to experience all the same stuff my family described. Weird noises, nicks, whistles. Always felt like we were being watched. We would have fires right by the tree line at night, have a few drinks, and we'd hear something that sounded like two legs and was big just inside the tree line where you couldn't see. And it would just sit there, not walk away, but it would just walk back and forth inside the tree line and watch us. Whatever it was probably curious, because there hadn't been any human activity whatsoever on the property for over a year until my wife and I came along. The same weird stuff would happen over and over for about a month and a half, mainly just hearing weird noises as soon as the sun went down, all the way until the sun came up every night, it seemed like. Then my wife and I actually saw something one night. So it's like 10 p.m. and we are outside in front of the house. And behind the house is where the forest is. I'm on the phone with the internet people because our internet was down. And me and my wife heard something that sounded like a coyote howl coming from the small field that separates our house and the forest. It's less than 100 yards away from my house lights. Didn't reach that far. Therefore, we couldn't see what it was. Almost at the same time, we heard the second sound. This sound was more high-pitched, like a chuckle almost, but coming from the same direction, so we thought whatever it was more than one of them. Anyway, about 5 minutes passed, and we didn't think anything of it, that it was just coyotes or something. Well, to the left, my house is about 30 to 40 yards, is the neighbor's stable, where their livestock hang out. 2 or 3 horses, goats, cows, some chickens, 2 guard dogs. I also think this is important to note that my neighbor had just bought all of these animals, except for the dog and horses, within 2 weeks prior to this event. So the livestock is a new addition to my neighbor's property. Anyway, I noticed the mama cow was getting pissed at something, and she was always looking at something in the dark that my wife and I could not see. The mama cow actually stepped on one of her calves by accident trying to get between them, and whatever it was had spooked her. A few seconds later, she charges at whatever it was, and me and my wife were finally able to make out an animal in the darkness. At first it was on all fours, and when the cow charged it, it stood up on 2 legs and ran away. It was dark brown or black, around 7 feet tall. One weird thing is, when it ran away, it made no sound whatsoever. This all happened with 30 to 40 yards away from where we were standing. Another weird thing is that my neighbor's dogs roam freely at all times, and they would just bark at everything. But for some reason, when this happened, those dogs were nowhere to be found, almost like they didn't want to be a part of whatever they saw. So, what I heard sounded like coyotes, and what I saw looked like a bear, I guess you could say. The only thing is, bears don't make those kind of sounds. They also don't run from a threat on their hind legs, so I don't know what it was. I also thought it's pretty unlikely that Bigfoot exists, but there is something out there. All I know is that it was not an animal known for living in Kasichi National Forest. I was born and raised in Houston, but I spent a lot of time hunting and lived in Colorado for a year and hiked the mountains every weekend almost. So I'd say I'm pretty hip to being outdoors and identifying common animals by sight and sound. After me and my wife finally saw whatever had been making all the weird noises every night, my wife was so freaked that we packed our stuff and moved back to Houston a few days later. Literally. I tried to argue against it because I enjoyed being out there despite the unusual stuff happening. But she couldn't handle being out there any longer, and when night came around, she was always super anxious. If you ever go out into the wilderness, no matter what the situation is, and no matter who you are with, always be prepared. Well, because this gentleman is such a skeptic, and obviously he's talking about Sasquatch like it doesn't exist, I'm pretty sure he does not know what Dogman is, or probably, judging from his writing, I don't think that he's heard of Rougarou either, which, as we all know, the Rougarou, Dogman, are right at home in the woods and swamp of Louisiana. My friend, you saw Dogman, and your wife probably saved you and your kid's life. Anyway, wow. Today's third encounter. I live in Georgia, in a rural town not far from a major city. There's a set of woods that's behind the house. It divides two neighborhoods. It's about a mile wide, if that. Strange occurrences have always surrounded these woods. Small things like random trash, tarps, etc. I should mention, there's more swampy marsh than woods, so it makes camping out there impossible. One night I was taking my dog out. He stays in the back half of the house, due to him not liking other dogs. I took him out the side door and walked around the house to the fence. For some reason, when we left the house, he was absolutely terrified. He didn't want to go out. Very unusual for a dog who's quick to snatch someone's soul if prompted. Not thinking about it, we pushed onward. After he tinkled, we walked back. This is when I noticed it, or rather heard it, crunching of the leaves. At first, I thought it was just one of our dozen cats on the property until I realized it was matching my steps. If I walked, you could hear it walking. If I stopped, it stopped. There's a small clearing between the woods where one of the sheds are. That's when I saw it. My dog was the first to see something, and then I saw something. I don't know, a creature? It was taller than the shed, so maybe a good 8 feet, and it darted across the clearing at a crazy fast speed. My dog, who, again, is not scared of anything, bolts so fast I dropped his leash, and he ran to the door whining. I was quickly behind him. Once we were inside, I quickly bolted the door and ran to tell my girlfriend what had just happened. She immediately wanted to go investigate, saying it's probably a woodland creature. Armed with 2 flashlights, we went out the front door. As we walked toward the wood line, we could hear something moving around. It sounded maybe 200 yards away. As we scanned with our flashlight, we saw nothing but kept hearing it. Then we heard it getting closer and closer until it was maybe 20 feet away. Still nothing, no eyes, not even an animal call, just a rustling. My girlfriend now heads for the house. I decide to check with the neighbors to see if maybe one of their dogs got out. When I arrived at my neighbor's house, we'll call him Dave, explained all his dogs were accounted for. Curious, he came to investigate as well. This is when I noticed that whatever this thing was following me along the tree line to Dave's house, and was now behind Dave's house. Gun in hand, we went out into his backyard, scanning for something. We could hear it rustling, or maybe running, about 100 yards away in the thick, swampy woods. Way too thick for a person to walk in, let alone run in. Then it stopped. It was dead silent. Scanning, and on edge we hear and see nothing, but then bam! All of a sudden it was 5 feet in front of us, sprinting at me. It slammed the fence so hard it rocked back and forth. Dave, scared shitless, shot randomly. Nothing. We never saw it. Never had it got close to us. Again, as I mentioned, the woods are thick. Too thick to run in, so what the hell, teleported silently in front of us and slammed the gate. Spooked, we were about to run, and then we heard it. It was human in nature, but not English. It sounded alien-like, not a known language. Dave, a hunter for the last 40 years, still to this day can't explain what it was. Anyway, after we heard that, we bolted. He covered me, and I ran to my house. Not 10 minutes later, we both hear a loud explosion coming from the woods. It shook our houses and flickered our power. I ran out to see what it was, and of course nothing, but when Dave came out and confirmed he felt the same thing, we were both once again terrified. Moments later, a few strangers from the neighborhood came driving down our cul-de-sac, and they all agreed the blast they heard came from behind our house. 911 was called, and 2 police officers interviewed us separately. Our stories matched. The responding officers refused to go anywhere near those woods. They took the report and left. To this day, we are still not sure what we encountered out there. Also, Dave does not go outside at night anymore. It spooked him that bad. Next night, earlier in the day, my mother-in-law, a police officer from a town 40 minutes away, installed 2 motion-activated trail cams along the woods edge. They were brand new. Keep that detail in mind. Thinking maybe we'd see something, we waited for nightfall. Later that evening, I went outside to feed our outdoor cats. That's when I heard it again, rustling. This time, not taking any chances, I ran inside and told everyone what I heard. They all piled on the back door and urged me to go out there and look. Reluctantly, I agreed. I took a flashlight and walked to the edge of the woods, knowing there was a trail cam covering this area. I figured if it got me, it'd be on camera and my sacrifice wouldn't be for anything. As I got to the wood's edge, I could still hear the rustling. I'm shaking at this point because I could tell it was maybe less than 15 yards in front of me. Everyone at the door was watching me and could hear this thing. Then it got quiet. For a moment it was gone, or so I thought. Just as I'm scanning with my flashlight, trying to desperately see a normal woodland creature so I can laugh this whole thing off, boom! Something fell out of the tree and hit the ground so hard it shook the soil beneath my feet. It was so close that I was sure it was going to lunge out of the brush and snag me. I dropped my flashlight and ran 100 yards back to the house in what felt 2 seconds. I screamed, "Get the frick in the house," as everyone was already scampering back in. They heard and felt the thud as well. Our neighbor Dave called my mother-in-law to ask what the loud crash was. For him to have heard that from well over 700 yards away is insane to me. Once the adrenaline died down, we realized that this happened right next to the trail cam. Problem solved. We got evidence of this thing. Next morning, we checked the SD card and the trail cam. They have videos up until 11:47. The rest is corrupted. They were both brand new trail cams and brand new SD cards. We reset everything and sent them back up, and to this day, we've still never encountered the creature again or caught anything on the camera. Today's final encounter. I went on a little hiking trip with my dad to Shasta, California, a small town in Northern California near the Oregon border. Shasta is home to a potentially active volcano named, of course, Mount Shasta. There are many trails on Mount Shasta, so my father and I were excited to do some hiking. We drove up the side of the mountain to the parking lot in which one of the trails begins. I believe it's called the Old Ski Bowl Trail. The landscape was very barren incline, filled with rocks, boulders, dirt, and a few trees. About an hour into the trail, we came across a very odd assembly of these 3 large boulders. They were arranged in a circle. We thought this was strange, but we continued on. If you look up pictures of the trail, you will see much smaller rocks arranged in patterns and circles. My father and I only encountered 3 people. At least, that's what they appeared to be at first. The first 2 were a father and son. We met them at a steep incline that went along the wall of this cliff that would then switch back to reach the top of the cliff. We stopped, said hello, talked about the trail, went our separate ways. Here's where it gets weird. Dad and I kept walking up the incline for just about 2 minutes. Turned around and I saw the father and son so far down the trail. It should have taken them at least 20 minutes to get down to where they were. But somehow, it was only about 2 minutes. To this day, I have absolutely no idea how that happened. There was no one else on the trail at this point, and I could see the color of their clothes from the distance. I knew it was them. I pointed this out to my dad, and we thought that was weird, but we didn't dwell on it, so we kept going. And this is where things get much weirder. As we reached the top of the cliff, there's another strange rock arrangement that was off to the side of the trail. This time, there were far more rocks than before, and they were now arranged in rows, almost like gravestones. We continued on the trail and reached another sort of incline with a switchback to reach the top of another cliff. We reached a point where we would need to be climbing gear to use, so we decided to head back. When we turned around, I saw a man standing among the rocks, staring at us. He was wearing a button-up shirt, cargo shorts, and a wide-brimmed straw hat. He was at a distance where I definitely should have been able to make out his facial features, but it was almost as if he had none, like his face was just flesh and skin. I pointed him out to my dad, and then the man quickly ducked behind a boulder and was peering out at us over the top. It seemed almost playful, like a child trying to hide. For a few moments, I was out of it, and I have no recollection of what was going on. According to my dad, I just started walking toward the man with the hat. My dad was calling me, "Joshua, Josh, what are you doing? Where are you going?" And then I came to. I was standing right at the edge of the cliff. It was a huge drop, enough to kill me or seriously injure me. My dad grabbed me and pulled me back onto the trail. He told me to stay put, and my dad went down to the boulders to search for the man, but he was not there. There was nowhere for that man to go except up or down the trail, and this did not make sense. I have no idea what's going on that trail. I have no explanation for it. I've told this many times to family and friends, and no one has an explanation. I've done research and found similar stories about encounters with a man who has no facial features and wearing a hat. I've also read that the Native American tribes from that area view Mount Shasta as a holy site. They believe it could act as a portal to other dimensions, and that it is guarded by spirits who would potentially harm anyone who tried to go up the volcano.
We were able to figure out the location. I know my finger is blurry, but I don't care. Excuse the finger. But what's most important is this tree that's going at an angle. This is that angled tree that was in the photo. So I'm going to show you. It is It's quite a ways up there. Moving, moving, moving. Perfect. This is where it was. This is where the thing was. So I did some. My wife took some photos of me up there. Now I'm 205 pounds, 5'9". So to give you a reference to how big the item is, or item, creature, that I squatted down trying to see if something was squatting, trying to make the size as small as possible and seeing how much space I would take. Like I said, I'm 200 pounds plus and I'm 5'9". Okay, so I want to give you guys just a real quick explanation of what we saw. So the night that we were there, we were looking through the night vision, and I was looking for critters to see and test how powerful my night vision is. And so as I was scanning the hill, there's like a large hill that's right attached to the camp, and I hit this thing, and I didn't expect it, but I wasn't thinking like cryptid or anything like that because I was warned by the rangers that there was a mountain lion and a black bear that live in the general area. So at first I was a little concerned that it was a mountain lion watching us. Um, I did take my spotlight and the thing disappeared. Like it wasn't there. Like literally it's there and then I hit it. There's nothing. That was really weird to me. I then went to the spot where you can see me. I set up a trail cam, and the weird thing is, the trail cam got the laser was hitting some kind of movement and going off, pointed in that area, and it was there all night. I went and did this the next morning, and it got hits all night long, over and over again. I did use the um, device. It's a T21 for the trail camera, and then it's a G Thunder night vision is what we were using, and it did see it again in the same spot. But when I took the spotlight to it, it wasn't there. But the other thing that's kind of creepy is it was totally dead silent. Dead silent. You could hear a bird chirp or nothing. Like, and I don't know if that's normal for the area because it's heavily camped. It's not like a few campsites here and there. We're talking about 70 campsites altogether. So this is not like there's a lot of people. And so I thought maybe that's because of the animals are scared of the people. I don't know. The dogs are just absolutely going crazy all night for some reason, but that doesn't really mean anything. And then the other thing that's really weird is my wife made a joke to one of the rangers about how I was there with all this equipment to go hunting Dogman. And then after she told the ranger that, the feds showed up and they were showed up in I think it was 5 vehicles showed up within an hour or two of that joke. And they were watching us at the camp for a while and they were driving around everywhere like they were looking for something. I don't know what they were doing, but the weird part is the other ranger that came back that was talking to my wife and her were talking. She said that she had no idea why the Rangers were there, and it was really unusual that they don't ever come down there. And she didn't know what was going on. It was kind of this weird awkwardness going on, but she didn't have like a ooh spooky awkward. It was just like somebody's in trouble or something. So it was kind of weird, and so I've been trying to get this information sent to Jeff, but every piece of equipment I have is malfunctioning and not functioning correctly. And so I had to do it this way. I had to actually spend 2 or 3 hours putting things on YouTube, uploading into my device. My OBS Studio wasn't working correctly, which is weird. My Microsoft Windows was failing. Like my phone won't transmit the images there. I was having problems with the trail cams getting them up in there. I mean, every piece of electronic equipment I have is like malfunctioning.
All right, so that video is from a state park in Arizona. And he went there specifically to catch any kind of activity he could. He did. He did catch activity. I'm not sure what it is, but it is very creepy looking. And funny enough, while at that state park, he or his wife had made mention of him bringing his cameras to get evidence of Dogman or other creatures. The rangers, the state park rangers, ended up having federal park rangers come into the park, and he was questioned and such. Very strange kind of happening. You know, his granddad actually worked in the Pentagon and knew a little bit of information on these creatures. So, guys, thank you for supporting this channel. Your support is what makes this channel special and what continues to make it grow and go. I truly appreciate all of your support. It really is just amazing. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real, they're out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless you all.